Welcome to the last days of 2020 with mtk-on-the-mic. I am MTK on the MIC, and there is an MIC today. So audio for the last 10 episodes of this program, the last days of 2020 with MTK on the MIC, will now be returned to a more hopefully appealing sound. It is the 22nd of December. It is 8:20 a.m. in California. Love you, California. It is 11:20. I think where you are, Joni. Love you, Joan. It is 4:20 in the UK. You know what to do. Ring out the old. Ring in the new. Ring happy bells across the snow. The year is going. Let it go. Ring out the false, ring in the true. Ring out the grief that saps the mind for those that here we see no more. Ring out the feud of rich and poor. Ring in redress to all mankind. Tennyson, as per dad, seemed to fit our current circumstance as the House has passed the stimulus bill, which is a joke, a farce. The naked inequity of the United States economic and political system, which arguably are married in such a fashion and have been more tightly wound since the 1980s, continues to erupt in social ills and attacks on our freedom. Among these now is the hidden change to the DMCA, which we discussed earlier, being passed, tucked into the omnibus relief bill. So one thing we're going to do real quick is we're going to let a lawyer explain what this actually is.
Did the DMCA law pass? That's the question I've been getting from hundreds of Twitch streamers in the past week. The answer is no, not yet. It likely will pass soon and be signed into law by the president. But that's not the whole story. This new DMCA law proposed by Senator Tom Tillis has got me worried about the future of streaming on Twitch and YouTube. Let me explain. Hi, I'm Ian Corzine, your social media lawyer. And as I said before, I'm a little bit worried about our future streaming on Twitch and YouTube. Why? It has to do with the DMCA law proposed by Senator Tillis. It's called the Protecting Lawful Streaming Act. The text of the bill was released last week. Let me take you to the text so we can go into it in more detail. We're going to take a look at the Protecting Lawful Streaming Act of 2020. I'm going to take you to the actual bill right here, which was released by Senator Tillis last week. Right here, it says that he is the chief author of that bill. And it says here, to amend Title 18 United States Code section to prohibit illicit digital transmission services. And this is the key phrase, digital transmission services. We're going to talk more about that as we go through this bill. But I think it's really important for you to focus on this term because I do think understanding this could be the key to understanding the future of Twitch and YouTube streaming. I'm going to take you to the most important part, and that comes in the definitions section. And I've taken some notes right here. For purposes of this law, there are definitions of phrases or words. And in this case, section 2 talks about the term digital transmission service right here. All right, so I have some notes here. But before we get to those notes, let's talk about this definition. The term digital transmission service means a service that has the primary purpose of publicly performing works by digital transmission. Now, technically, if you could get behind the word service as referring to a particular person or entity, then this technically could apply to Twitch streamers or YouTube streamers because they publicly perform works by digital transmission. And so the key question right here, which I put to the side here, is could digital transmission service, could that be a streamer? And in this particular case, it appears that it could not be, because it defines digital transmission service as a service. Service would lead one to believe, lead a lawyer, lead a judge to believe that it's not just a person, it's an actual entity, a business entity, a commercial entity. So it's really important for you to understand this, and when you're going through these laws, understand key terms, the definitions of the key terms, before you actually start reading the law. It'll become more important as we go on. The terms publicly performed will refer to the exclusive rights of a copyright owner under paragraphs 4 and 6 of section 106 relating to exclusive rights in copyrighted works of Title 17. I know that because I often use section 106 in my work as a lawyer for creators and various people that want to protect their works of art. This particular section gives the list of the bundle of rights that you get when you get a copyright, and paragraphs 4 and 6 refer to the right to publicly perform your work of art. So that's what they're referring to here. And then we move down to the actual heart of the law. This is section B, prohibited act. It shall be unlawful to willfully and for purposes of commercial advantage or private financial gain, offer or provide to the public a digital transmission service that, all right, so as you look at this law, it's not only this section B, but it's also got to be these subsections 1, 2, or 3. But we'll first focus on section B. It does say it shall be unlawful to willfully. That indicates to lawyers that you must violate this law with intent. It can't be an unintentional use of copyrighted material without permission. So using this particular part of the law, this will inform us that if you are a Twitch streamer, you are a YouTube streamer, and you're including in your stream unintentionally copyrighted work that you don't have permission to use, then you would not be violating this law. It has to be a willful violation of this laws. And for the purposes of commercial advantage or private financial gain. There's a debate out there about whether or not getting ad revenue from either YouTube or Twitch or another social media platform constitutes a commercial advantage. I would argue that it does, because a lot of you Twitch streamers, a lot of my clients make a lot of money from streaming. So I would argue that that's the case. However, there is a substantial argument out there that says that a lot of AdSense revenue is real low. And so it doesn't equate to commercial advantage or private financial gain. That's a debate for another day, because the bottom line is, in order to violate this new proposed law, it must be willful. You must use the copyrighted content without permission willfully. And let's move on to section 1 and 2. And is primarily designed or provided for the purpose of publicly performing works protected under Title 17 without the authority of the copyright owner. So it's not only got to be a service, it's not only got to be a willful violation, but it's got to be, the service has got to be primarily designed or provided for performing these works publicly, meaning streaming, without the authority of the copyright owner. And then it says, or has no commercially significant purpose other than to publicly perform these works. Some of these services, these companies out there, don't explicitly say that they are out there to make money selling streams. They just offer them, and people pay them for them through donations or some other way. And so this part of the law is there to trap those people who don't explicitly say they were selling pirated streaming content. And I'll take you down here. I circled or because I wanted to emphasize the fact that a violation of this proposed law that was introduced by Senator Tillis not only requires a willful violation, a willful pirating of copyrighted content, but it's also, you need to be able to prove item number 1, primarily designed for public performance of this stolen work, no commercial significant purpose other than to perform pirated streaming content, or is intentionally marketed by or at the direction of that person to promote its use in the publicly performing works protected under Title 17 by means of digital transmission without the authority of the copyright owner or the law. So this is quite a hurdle for the government or whoever is trying to prosecute a violation of copyright law, the DMCA law, because you've got to prove this willfulness. And proof of willfulness or intent is difficult as a lawyer. It's hard sometimes to be able to get information, either it's testimony or documentary information that says, yeah, I willfully knew that I was violating law by providing this streamed content I did not have permission for. So this is quite a hurdle, and this is one of the reasons why a lot of people out there are saying that this new proposed DMCA law actually does not affect the individual Twitch streamer or YouTube streamer, because they don't have a willful intent. They are not a service, and they are not formed for the purpose of displaying copyrighted content without permission. So that's one of the reasons why they say, hey, you know what? All this big deal about this DMCA law actually wasn't a big deal because the law was specifically drafted to affect a digital transmission service and not an individual streamer. All right, now we move on to the penalties section of this new proposed DMCA law. It says any person who violates subsection B, which is above here, shall be, in addition to any penalties provided for under Title 17 or any other law, 1, fined under this title, imprisoned not more than 3 years, or both. So if there's a violation of this law, it is technically a felony, because under federal law, any statute that imposes punishment of more than a year in jail counts as a felony. Now, of course, we've already talked about it. There are a lot of hurdles to proof of a violation of this law, but it is important to understand that this is a strongly worded law. If this was ever interpreted in a different way, maybe interpreted so that individual streamers could be found to violate this law, then this would be a long prison sentence, and it definitely would be a federal felony. And now we come down to Section D, which is the rule of construction. And what that basically means is, this happens a lot in federal statutes. There's a section which says, listen, we put forth this law, but we don't want to impact other laws with this new law. So it says right here, it says nothing in this section shall be construed to affect the interpretation of any other provision of civil copyright law, including the limitations of liability set forth in Section 512 of Title 17. And what Section 512 refers to are the provisions in the DMCA, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, that protect social media platforms from being found jointly liable for copyright infringement with their users. So what this is really saying is that even though this law could give jail to a digital transmission service that is found to violate this law, it's not going to impact the non-liability of social media platforms, or for that matter, individual users of the social media platforms. And so the conclusion from this law is that it is a strong law. However, it does not technically pertain to individual Twitch streamers or YouTubers right now. But I am worried specifically about this part of the law that right here describes digital transmission service. I mean, what if I were to change the wording of this particular provision? Maybe just change one word. In other words, what if I did this?
Service. Strikes out the word
if
service.
The definition of digital transmission service in this new bill included person, someone like you or me, then Twitch streamers, YouTube streamers, could go to jail if they knowingly include in their streams copyrighted video, audio, or images. Will the law be changed in that way? I have to tell you, and I don't want to scare you, but I think eventually it will be. I see that society is gradually changing. We're moving to a world in which fair use is becoming obsolete. Fair use, of course, is the law that allows us to use copyrighted content without the permission of the copyright owner. I see this happening more and more. In future years, we may not be able to borrow video clips to accent or to make our videos or streams better. We may not be able to use a little popular music in our podcast, and we may not be able to build upon other images to create our own art. Now, what does this mean right now for you? It means that when you stream to Twitch or YouTube, you have to be very careful. Do not use copyrighted content without the permission of the copyright holder in your streams or your videos. Do not use...
Well, there you go. A lawyer. What? A lawyer. Oh, God, I forgot we can't scream anymore. There's no reason to scream anymore. I feel like we should all take a breath. Go back to MTK tempo. Give you a little music. I am obsolete. This is what I've learned from the lawyer. Fair use is obsolete. Oh boy, that's a lot to swallow. It is fundamentally the opposite of my entire project for the last 30 years, which is to use free broadcasting technology. I mean, if I can stick an antenna in my backyard, I can say whatever I want on it. People can choose to tune in or not tune in. That's how I started with the pirate radio crowd in the earliest days. And now, today, with the passage of the rider hidden within the, I call those a rider of the DMCA adjustments, I can no longer stream. So, I have seen this coming, sure. I have decried it throughout. I still think it's wrong. I don't think what I'm doing applies to any of that, and I believe fair use is not obsolete. Fair use is imperative to proper critique so that you can have an intellectual outside space from which to criticize socio-political, religious, ethical, cultural clashes. The only way to have the vantage is to have secular and apolitical observation, historically done through the realm of journalism and, literature. So this is an assault, first by the visual, upon literature, and now the rules are changing. So it becomes narrower and narrower. The writers I used to know who might say, I'm working on a novel, all say, I'm working on a script. I made all this music, thankfully. Oh, not thankfully, presciently, because I'm avant-garde and have been throughout, but obsolete, right? Because I haven't tried to make money off it. I've been trying to use it as a measuring space and a critique space, storage space for history when I feel like it's being corrupted, and off-port memory for me as I get older too, right? But it ends, it has to end. The DMCA is narrowing in on the ability to freely use the internet through streaming video, live. That's the point here. This is live. Anything could happen to our society, right? Fear, we are dominated by an irrational fear. And as that happens, we also have passed this stimulus bill, which is just, oh my God, laughable in its inequity. Well, it would be laughable if it weren't so painful and sad and miserable for so many whom they cannot even see from their seats in Congress. And now I wanted to bring up a point from the standpoint of perspective. Since I was a little kid, because I was raised by two scientists, people who are educators, teachers in the sciences. So when you teach science, you have to know a lot more science than just when you do science, and in a lot of different disciplines. And I think it probably affects the way we act as well. To be methodological, to be logical, to be rational, to try to set conditions for things to see if there's, repeated outcomes. Also, when I was a little kid, things like this would be around my dad's house. This is from 2004, so I wasn't a little kid. But there were these around since I was very young. So this is 16 years old now, but sorry, that's population in billions. So in the future, when this bill passes, I wouldn't be able to do that, for example. And that's a contextual reference that I really want to use here. It's what I called the human population explosion, the HPE, and how we're living in it. And what's happening now is the division of available resources by the wealthy, right in front of everyone's eyes. And it's being done in authoritarian ways in some places, like Russia. And it's being done in hyper-capitalized, mechanical ways in other places, like in the United States of America, where this joke of a government does nothing for its people. Basic needs are not met because the rules of the marketplace to them govern their sensibilities. So these are weird days indeed. Last days of 2020 will also be the last time I broadcast on YouTube. It doesn't really matter because I'm obsolete. But just so you know,